Hello and welcome to The Pledge. Well, last weekend, Chelsea's goalkeeper and manager had a pretty public bust-up. Maurizio Sarri wanted to substitute Kepa in the League Cup final, but the Spaniard flat-out refused. After an extraordinary couple of minutes of furious finger-wagging and shouting, the manager caved in and the goalie stayed on. Now, we on The Pledge can sympathise with poor Mr Sarri. Last summer, I tried to kick Greg off the paddle, but he just refused to leave that chair. And here we are, over 6 months later, and he still hasn't budged. You don't just find divas on the football pitch. Coming up on the show, Nick argues we're getting mixed messages. Michelle puts her hand up for updated sex ed. Trevor thinks footballers need taking down a peg, and Greg doesn't want to give up control. But first, it's me. This week, Jeremy Corbyn committed the greatest Brexit betrayal of all by agreeing to support a people's vote. He stuck two fingers up at the working classes, millions of whom have already voted to leave. And he became a knight in shining armour for a bunch of elitist, middle-class Remainers. He has betrayed those voters in Labour's heartlands. Remember, more than 60% of Labour constituencies voted leave, in order to save his own political skin and to halt the exodus of MPs from his party. No sooner had this lifelong Eurosceptic shelved his principles for political expediency, Theresa May announced that she will ditch her promises and let MPs vote to delay Brexit next month, which they will, as Parliament is stuffed full of Remainers. So, having vowed to the British people that we will leave on March the 29th, our gutless PM has buckled under pressure from her own ministers. What's now clear is that the entire political establishment is working against the British people to thwart Brexit. And for that, they will pay the price.
The thing that seems to me, Carole, is that you're picking on the poor kid on the edge of the playground who, frankly, isn't in the fight.
So Corbyn's the poor kid, is he?
The Labour Party is in a pathetic state. It's in a row about anti-Semitism. The magic grandpa Corbyn has turned into sad Uncle Jeremy. And he's sort of present but not involved. I'm wondering why today you aren't having a go at the people who are actually holding things up, who are the European Research Group. They are the people who are holding Theresa May to ransom.
Can I speak? So you've just accused me of a lot of things. You said he's not the person involved. He is just the person who has agreed to support a people's vote. The man who for the last 2 years has said he would not support a people's vote. And when you say, I'm picking on the kid in the playground who's not responsible, this man is in charge of a party who has just betrayed 70% of the people who vote for it. He had the working class voters who voted for Brexit have been betrayed. Not only have these people been betrayed, but democracy has been betrayed. And Jeremy Corbyn has helped that happen.
Yeah, but let's remember that most Labour voters also voted Remain.
No, they did not.
And number two...
Let me just come in on that and give you some actual figures. In the 2017 election, 8 million Remain voters voted Labour. In the 2017 general election, 4 million Leave voters voted Labour. So in other words, twice as many were Remain voters. And in the 2016 EU referendum, Labour voters split. 67% voted Remain, 33% voted Leave.
Okay.
So your figures are actually wrong.
I haven't said the figures yet, but nearly 70% of Labour constituencies voted to leave.
You said
they were the people in Labour's heartlands which have now been betrayed.
No, you said 70% of Labour voters. If they didn't.
Right, 70%, let's make it clear.
Constituencies.
Let's make it clear. 70% of Labour constituencies, most of which were in Labour's heartlands. And those people have been let down.
But that's because the Tories all voted.
You're losing the viewers. You're losing the viewers. Stop with the percentages, please. Stop. No one can understand. Let me just say this.
Can I just make one last point? My point, Carole, is not, you know, I have a great esteem for Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, I'm public on this. My point is, they're irrelevant at the moment. The people who are calling the shots here are inside the Conservative Party. Why aren't we talking about them?
Because what Carole has floated is where the Labour position is. And let's not worry about percentages. We did have a vote nearly 3 years ago. There was a result. And after that, the Labour Party went to the public and said, Labour will support the result of the referendum. And that's what they have failed to do. And I think Mr Corbyn, and I know why he's doing it. I think if he hadn't have done that, he might have lost some more MPs. Remember, he's lost a number already. So he's got hemorrhaging MPs. I think that's why he's done it. But I actually, although not use your level of language, I do think it's an insult to democracy.
Let me just read out this thing. This is the manifestos of both parties before the last election. So this takes in, you're saying that the Tories are to blame. Labour 2017 election manifesto, quote, Labour accepts the referendum result and a Labour government will put the national interest first. Conservatives 2017 election manifesto, following the historic referendum on June the 23rd, 2016, the United Kingdom is leaving the European Union. Those parties, the Tories got in on the back of that promise, and 82% of voters backed these two parties on polling day. So they have let the voters down.
Well, I feel let down by Labour, or all of them, quite frankly. And I don't know if you saw what Owen Smith was saying, I think it was a couple of days ago, when he was talking about Brexit being a racist and a phobic project, which I thought was so insulting. I really did find it insulting.
Absolutely.
And I feel like they are disconnecting with a huge number of their base who want Brexit, who wanted Brexit and still want Brexit. And I also feel the people that defaulted from Labour to go into TIG, I think it's absolutely shameful that they got elected on the back of a Labour manifesto and haven't been forced to have a by-election. I found that absolutely terrible.
TIG is the independent group, just so that we spell out who that is when you go.
But that's the history of British politics.
Yeah, but that don't
people
say
crossing the house,
right.
people changing or crossing the house virtually never resign.
But that doesn't mean to say it's right. If you get elected on the back of it, and I understand the technicalities that you're voting for an individual, I understand how it's set up, but ultimately people are voting for parties and manifesto promises. And if you default from that, which you're absolutely entitled to do, there should be a change in law that a by-election is automatically triggered. And I think it's shameful that it's not.
When you have MPs, Labour MPs like David Lammy, saying almost every other day, let's end this nightmare of Brexit, what he's saying is, let's end democracy. Let's end, listen, let me just finish the point. Let's end the right of ordinary people to have a say in the future of their own country.
But actually, that's why I think the argument is quite strong. But I don't think it will happen for another vote. And the other vote would say, look, we now know what we're voting for. We've got three choices. There's Mrs May's deal, no deal and leave, and or we will remain. What's wrong with asking people again?
That's the wrong question.
That is democracy. Is democracy.
Well, I tell you what the problem with that is, Greg. You have three options on your ballot paper. There is no way any of those options will attract 17.4 million votes. Exactly. So you will end up with another referendum, which is won by a group which is smaller than the group that won the first referendum. I mean, I just wonder whether we're getting sucked into the parliamentary machination. I know that the MPs are having a fantastic time here. I mean, there are people here who are whose names aren't even known to their neighbours, who are on telly every day, and they're having a fantastic time. But shouldn't we really be thinking about how do we get a deal and then get on with dealing with some of the things that really matter?
Don't you think that Mrs May's deal now, actually, when it comes back with some words that help to overcome the Irish problem, I think there's a good chance it'll go through.
Brandon Lewis, the Conservative Party chairman, said he thinks they're going to offer a little bit more, which is, you may well be right. Let's just explore, let's move it forward a little bit, because you also said something like, you think politicians will face a tremendous backlash.
I do.
You think the Anna Soubries and the Gianna Bergers will all get...
I think nobody's going to vote for them. I think the people who currently vote Labour, I think, will turn to UKIP. And I think there will...
They'll leave, as you mean?
Yes, the Leave. Yeah, but it'll come back, and Farage will come back.
You've got the Brexit Party.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe what we ought to do is hear what Labour says for itself. John McDonnell set out why they have made this switch.
We were clear in our manifesto, we want to respect the last referendum, but we've now been pushed to the edge by the Prime Minister. We say she's running down the clock, and it's getting dangerous now. She's about to wreck the economy if we're not careful. So we're forced into a position whereby, exactly as we said in the referendum, we've got to block a no deal, we've got to block a reckless deal as well. So the only way we're left now, is going back to the people.
Well, the thing is that...
Why? What you just said.
Look, I've got some sympathy with what you're saying, Carole, but I think you're a bit extravagant about this. The point is, the Labour Party clearly has nothing very much to say. All it's saying is, let's have another vote. They're not telling us about
what. He said was, we respect the result of the referendum. He just said it there, and his party has just voted to support it.
Yeah, but let's not get too hung up on the...
the promises.
What?
On the Liberal
Trevor
promises.
Phillips, come on.
Well, the important thing here is how do we fulfil that promise? That's really what the issue is. And I think Greg is right that actually where we may end up with is something a bit like Theresa May's deal. Yeah. And I think most of the country basically is fed up with this sort of argument. Where I think what Carole's saying is important is that what we may be seeing is the collapse of the current political architecture. And from my point of view, that's a good thing.
I think the collapse of the Labour Party, for absolutely sure.
Don't kid yourself, this is only happening in the Labour Party.
This is the party of the people, and they have just ignored the wishes of their people by promising a second vote.
We've gone through those numbers. That's not true. They didn't
It
ignore.
is true.
They're in a very difficult position because a third of their voters voted out. Right? So a third of them voted out. So that gives them a difficult position.
The ones that get them into power.
Order. We must move on.